Hello, fellow football officials. This is Chris Edwards, your WSOA Football Representative, and we're coming to you with this week's training video for our football officials in the state of Wyoming and the WHSAA. First of all, I want to give a huge shout out to those crews and coaches who sent some clips in for us to review this week. And we know by watching video and studying video, we all get better and we refine our crafts as football officials. We're going to focus heavily this week on player safety and making sure we are protecting our athletes so they can play every Friday night. This first clip actually has a couple layers of player safety to look at. And as we watch this play between Campbell County and Thunder Basin from Friday night, we have the quarterback drop back. We have a lot of blocking that is giving the quarterback time. And right about now we see a player's helmet who comes off, and we'll see here in the circle we have an offensive lineman whose helmet has came off in the act of blocking. But we do know by Rule 96-4G that it's illegal participation for a player whose helmet comes off completely during a down to continue to participate beyond the immediate action in which the player is engaged. So at this point, once that helmet comes off, that player is expected to stop action. We do know that it's tough for an athlete to make that decision right there in the moment of the game. So this is maybe a good learning moment and teaching moment for players and coaches that he must stop or else it's illegal participation. But we see he continues on downfield to participate. But what we have here is the next layer is we have a defender who is contacting that player whose helmet has come off during this down. And if we dig back in the rule book under section 943L, under illegal personal contact, it reads, it's illegal personal contact for any player to initiate contact with an opposing player whose helmet has completely come off during that down. So we'll play back through again. And like I said, it's just one of those plays that's not common, for a helmet to come off very often. But once this does, we do need that player to stop action immediately and become a non-player. And then we need opponents to not contact him. We also have to remember as a crew and coaching staff, if his helmet does come off, unless it's by a foul by his opponent, he does have to come off for one play. And just make sure we are enforcing that if this happens in one of our contests. So once again, we have illegal participation followed by illegal personal contact. In this situation, we did have offsetting penalties, and we replayed that down since they were both live ball penalties in that situation. These next couple of clips, what we're going to look at is change possessions, where we have interceptions. And we know these are types of plays where we start seeing a lot of potential safety factors when we have blockers that are peeling off to maybe free their teammate for a pick six or gain some big yards after the interception. And so in this situation, we're going to have to start determining, are these blocks legal? Or are they illegal by being blindside? Or are they illegal by being blocks in the back? Or illegal for blocks below the waist? So we have this interception. Now once we have this change possession, this is where as officials we're just going to stand still and let this action come to us. And what we're going to start looking for is this wall of blockers that are going to start peeling off these now defenders who are attempting to block or to tackle the interceptor. Now we kind of see this first little action here is pretty good, but now we're going to start seeing this action right here in front of the ball carrier. So I want to bring your attention to this block happening right here at the 50-yard line. But what we can see right now is that this block would not be a blindside block for the fact that the opponent can see this block coming. So now we got to determine if it's illegal contact. And if we watch it through once, we're going to see the hit that is taking place on that opponent. So we'll play it back a few seconds and kind of maybe start analyzing the action by the blocker. Right here we see that blocker crouch down into a launching motion. And then we have action that is initiated right at the head or above shoulder area of that opponent. So I think this is where we start looking at the action to deem it if it's illegal or if it's legal. And we've already determined it's not a blindside block because the opponent can see the block coming. So what I would want to turn our attention to is Rule 233. Now this rule, it reads, the blocker's hands may not be locked, nor may he swing, throw, or flip the elbow or forearm so that it is moving faster than the blocker's shoulders at the time the elbow, forearm, or shoulder contacts the opponent. I think this next phrase is a key phrase. The blocker may not initiate contact with his arm or hand against an opponent above the opponent's shoulder. And right now I think we can see all of this action is happening with the arm or forearm or shoulder above the opponent's shoulder. So we can see right here where it is taking at the head area. So in this situation, this is where we'll watch it one more time. We see that block coming. We're just going to stand still and make sure we're not in that moving action and just have eyes on that. And these blocks are hard to get when they're the change possessions. Now, since this block happened just ahead of the ball carrier, if the flag was thrown here about the 49, since this foul would have happened behind the end of the related run, we'd actually go to that spot of the foul and we'd go back 15 yards. It would still be Grable's football, but they would be back around that mark of the 15 yards back, which would be now the 36-yard line. This next play also has an interception where we start having some of those potential blocks that could be deemed illegal. And this, once again, this is just where, as a crew, once we see the interception, some people choose to beanbag it, some choose not to. Really, the beanbag could just be an indicator for your crew that we do have that change possession or turnover. We really couldn't go back to it for a foul necessarily. But we have the interception that's taking place. Now, that first block back here was good. No illegal contact. So now we're going to start looking at this wall of blockers again and start looking where they're going to go get some blockers. So is this line judge over here? He just has a great angle of these. The umpire, same thing. He has great angles of these blocks that are going to happen here. And so we're starting looking at this first block, and now we have right here about the 40-yard line. We're looking at this block, and we see a huge block that's delivered. And so watch again live, and so we just got to ask ourselves, was the opponent able to see this block coming? And this is where I think we had deemed the answer to be no. So this is where we have that illegal blindside block that takes place. Now, since once again this block happens behind the end of that related run, we would go back to where the penalty marker was, which is thrown at the 39. We would mark off 15 yards, which would put us back to the 24. It still would be Cody's ball, but now 1st and 10 at the 24. And you see we do have two fouls, or two flags on the ground for that foul that took place. Now we're going to move into just a couple of plays that just help us as crews to focus on that dead ball officiating, making sure we're seeing the action all the way through the whistle and maybe those 2 or 3 seconds after the whistle. And once again, we appreciate those crews, sending these clips in for us to look at and learn from each other. And we're going to look at this play. We have formation, quarterbacks, and shotgun. And right here we see the far receiver starts towards the line of scrimmage and is into the neutral zone. So we have a false start on the red team. Now that's where the flag is thrown, whistle is blown. But now we have a little continuation of that action. We have number 5 on the white bearing down on that quarterback. And we have a little swing or flare pass to the running back. Now here we have a huge hit on the quarterback that was after the whistle. And just unfortunately, which happens to us all, we maybe looked over to our head linesman to get the penalty and see what he was calling on this particular play. But then we have that action where the quarterback was hit in that situation. We do see the coach from the red team, asking for clarification on this particular play. I do think our line judge over here does a good job of communicating to him and listening to him and keeps him over, in his area. It doesn't allow him to go out into the middle there. But unfortunately, it's just one of those plays that got us. But as we go back and watch again, just as a refresher, just make sure when that whistle's blown, we keep our eyes on all the players for those few seconds to where we might have that, personal foul that's delivered here. Now, if we're going to administer this penalty, we would first mark off the 15 yards on the offense and go back 5 yards. But then this would be deemed a dead ball personal foul. So then we would march off the 15 yards against the white team. and then we would still have that same down in the situation. It looks like it's third down. We would still have that third down, unless that 15-yard penalty put us past the line to gain. Then we'd have a first down and 10. Now we have a very similar play here where we have a penalty that is called by the officiating crew. And right here we have a flag on the ground. Back here we can't really see it, but we have a flag for a false start in this action. And then, unfortunately, what we do have is a little continuation again of the action on the quarterback. We have maybe a fake dive ran here. But then as we see, then we have the quarterback that is taken down by his face mask after the whistle was blown. It's unfortunate, it's one of those plays. Like I said, it happens. We don't have eyes on it in the situation, so we don't get that personal foul by the defense. Once again, as far as penalty administration, we would have that 5-yard penalty marched off on the offense, but then since that would be considered a dead ball, then we'd move forward that 15 yards. So just, it's a good refresher for all of us. Just make sure we officiate through those dead balls, take that deep breath, give those 2 or 3 seconds, and then get into that penalty administration. All right, this last play we're going to look at, kind of one of those creative plays that some coaches pull out of their playbooks that shows their creativity and play design. It would also test some rule application by football officials. On this particular play, it happened in Powell on Friday night, and this is from one of my crews, and they sent it to me after the game, and we've had some good discussions with different people. Now, in this situation, we're going to have a lineman, number 55, who is going to catch a pass. Now, the rule is 7-4-2. If we read 7-4-2, it says, if a fumble or backward pass is caught by or recovered by any player, he may advance. Now, the key word is backwards pass or fumble, and by any player. So there's no numbering exceptions here that we have to worry about. So any number, even the bigs 50 through 79 can catch a backwards pass. So as you watch this play develop, they do a good job of making this play legal. They get enough men on the line of scrimmage, so we have no more than 4 in the backfield. And then that outside receiver goes on a slant, and this is where the offensive lineman peels back to receive this pass. Now this is kind of where the gray area comes in, and as officials we have to deem if this is a backwards pass or a forwards pass. Now in this situation we have goal line mechanics starting by our wing officials, so they're moving towards the pylon to officiate the goal line. And so it kind of gives them a tough angle on this play. But then we can kind of see where that quarterback throws the ball. It looks like he's between the 11 and 12 when he releases it. The offensive lineman, is in kind of a similar area, but could be potentially forward. But he catches his pass and goes in for a touchdown. Now we'll watch that play one more time. And like I said, by rule, this play design is legal. And then we just had to determine as crews if this was a forward or backwards pass. And then it just comes down to angles. And we see, like they said, they do a good job of making this formation legal. But then, like I said, that's where the gray area comes in right here, where quarterback throws it. He's releasing that ball around that 11. It would be nice if QB just stays there at the 11 or gives time for that old lineman to get back to clearly make this a backwards pass. Now, if we rule this to be a forward pass, this would be illegal touching by 55. If we deem this to be a backwards pass, it would be a legal play and it would be touchdown by number 55. But illegal touching does bring a 5-yard penalty and a loss of down. And we go back to that spot and we march off 5 yards and have a loss of down. All right, that's the end of the plays we have for this week. I just want to once again thank everybody for their time and their efforts in officiating in the state of Wyoming, and thank for those crews that send in some plays that we can review from and learn from. As we go in these last couple weeks of the regular season, just stay sharp. Make sure we're communicating with our crews both pre-game, pre-snap. Make sure we're communicating on dead ball administration and just having a great experience for all of our athletes in the state of Wyoming. Once again, this is Chris Edwards, your WSOA Football Representative,